Welcome friends to another r/MaliciousCompliance video. Today we've got a story that cost thousands of dollars. But first, a story from NCH 1307, Boss Lost Her Bonus. The incident happened about 2 months ago, but I just learned of the fallout. A little backstory: I'm a home hemodialysis nurse. I train patients and arrange for all their supplies. Beginning of June, I was told to admit a patient ASAP who was moving from out of state, already trained, only needed a home visit, machine, water, and drain installation, and supplies delivered. Plumber was on vacation equals no water installation possible for 2 weeks. Water is essential for preparing dialysate that in the end cleans the blood. There's an emergency workaround by buying pre-made dialysate, no water required. Patient needed 8 5-liter bags each treatment. They come 2 to a box. Patient needs dialysis 5 days a week. That's 4 boxes each treatment times 5 equals 20 boxes per week. The boss says order them as quickly as possible for 2 weeks. That's 40 boxes at 10 kilograms, 22 pounds. I tell her the shipping cost will be outrageous. Let's order 8 boxes express and the rest regular. Nope, she knows better. Okay, I order 40 boxes overnight by air. $1,500 just for shipping. Supplier thinks that's crazy. I think that's crazy. Boss says do it. End of July, they're checking the budget, and lo and behold, we spent way too much. Less than a third left for the rest of the year. Boss's bonus depends on smart budgeting. She didn't get her bonus this quarter. She was pissed. I feel so vindicated. I think this story is kind of hilarious because it's weirdly relatable in a much smaller scale to myself, which is I'll be on the good old Amazon searching around for something to buy, and I'll come across something that I can use in like maybe 3 or 4 days from the date that I would buy it. But there's that option a lot of times where you can spend $2 to get it delivered the very same day. And for some reason, even though I literally won't use it that day, I sit there and think about spending that $2 for a second before I realize it's just a waste of money. But I don't know why, just the fact that I can get it now makes it so attractive to me. Is this kind of gross mismanagement of money and funds something you would go above your boss's head to kind of report to higher ups? Or is missing out on their big quarter bonus enough of a punishment and hopefully a learning tool? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Our next story is from Potatoes. Yes, I'll make you coffee, father. This happened years ago, but it's still one of my favorite stories. When I was around 13, 14, I had a cousin that's 1 year older than me and really close to my father. One time when he was staying with us, my father and him thought it was funny asking me to bring things to them because I was a girl. Unfortunately for my father, my mother didn't raise no submissive girl, so when he asked me to make some coffee for them, I happily obliged. In my house, it's common to have the coffee be made with sugar already, so usually people wouldn't add it themselves, but this specific day I accidentally confused sugar with salt. Lots of it, like seawater salty coffee. When they came for coffee, I just sat back and watched them spill the coffee. My father looked at me and I gave him a cloth to clean the mess and said something in the lines of, "You never asked for coffee with sugar," and left. He never said anything, but never did that again. But the worst part was I didn't throw away the coffee in the pot, and a few minutes later, my uncle that was completely innocent and unaware of what was happening came to ask me why the coffee tasted funny. I did feel bad for him. I mean, besides the fact that OP's a girl and they were making jokes about bossing them around or essentially being subservient to them, it can also just be kind of annoying to make coffee for people, especially multiple people if they like their coffee different ways. You gotta go put the grounds in, put the water in, wait for it to brew. And then what I've experienced from family members making coffee for them, no matter how much you try to match whatever they wanted, there's always something going to be slightly off or wrong with it. To me, it seemed like there was always a comment of like, well, I might have put more creamer or more sugar or whatever in there. Remind me to have you double check next time. This next story is from Floodabella. You want the unripe bananas? Okay then. Years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I worked in an ice cream shop that also made smoothies and shakes. One day, a lady asked for a banana smoothie, so I started to make it and I grabbed the lovely super ripe bananas that were perfect for a smoothie. The lady saw me grab the bananas and said she didn't want those ones because they had brown patches. I told her they were perfect for a smoothie and would give it lots of banana-y flavor. She insisted she didn't want them, and I had to use the other bananas even though they had a tinge of green. So I made it for her. I did tell her the bananas weren't ripe properly and it wouldn't taste very nice, but she really didn't want me to use the bananas with some brown on the skins. I gave her her drink and she paid and left. She came back a few minutes later saying the smoothie was disgusting and asked me to remake it with the ripe bananas. I told her I would, but I would be charging her for it because I had warned her. She refused to pay and left with her subpar banana smoothie. It might seem visually off-putting to eat a banana that has brown spots all over it, but I feel like at some point everybody who likes bananas just has that awakening moment where it becomes totally understandable to eat those kinds of bananas and also identifiable that those are the tastiest ones. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is from Witchy Kitten 92, Leave It at the Door. So I work at a hotel, and we try not to leave things in the halls outside rooms when guests request them, mainly things like towels and coffee, as other guests tend to take them with them when they see them in the halls. Well, today we had a guest whose booking mentioned they're hard to deal with. They asked for a few things and were told they wouldn't be left outside the door. After 3 times of trying to deliver the coffee pods, we decided, my supervisor and I, that they needed to come and get it from us at the desk. They were not happy with this answer, so I was told, just leave it outside the darn door after being cursed at. I said fine, and I took the coffee pods, no bag. I set them on the floor, in the hall, directly across from the door. I didn't knock or anything, just left it and walked away. 30 minutes later, I get another call that they had not gotten the coffee. I state to them, it was left outside your room as you requested, but as I stated before, other guests tend to take them. Unfortunately, I'm all out for the evening, but more will be brought to the desk in the morning if you want to come down and grab a few extra. Have a good evening and let us know if you need anything else. And then I hung up. My supervisor was dying of laughter and so was I. Listen when the people tell you what others take and that you need to answer, because there usually is a reason. I think the most annoying thing here is it takes minutes tops to go back down to the lobby and get them? Unless you're staying at some major hotel. Is it really even that annoying to go and just get it from them? This honestly fits into that mindfulness thing where they say like, if it takes less than 5 minutes, just do it now. Well, it would take less than 5 minutes just to go down to the lobby and grab the darn coffee pods. This next story is from Farming Mage 15. Just get someone to remove the trash. It won't be that expensive. Okay. A small malicious compliance story. This is my father's story and not mine. Also, this is in South Africa. My father, 57-year-old male, who works at a mine, is a senior manager. He's been working there for 25 years. Recently, they got new bosses who are, as my father would say, incompetent, and they do not listen when they get advice. And when everything goes to crap, you need to fix their problem while they just sit and complain. Anyway, the mine was going to get a visit from the vice president of the mine, meaning the bosses try to get everything perfect. The road signs, potholes, pick up trash, etc. My father gave advice that it will not help to pick up the trash outside the mine because it'll look exactly the same the next day, and they should employ their own cleaners to do it slowly over time. Of course, this fell on deaf ears, and the boss told my father to employ a contractor in the area to clean up all the trash. Because it won't be that expensive. My father, knowing that they'll pay out their butts, told him it'll cost too much. But the boss waved him away. Malicious compliance. My father created a contract with the contractor and had the boss sign it, who wanted to refuse. But my father told him, "This is your order, is it not?" So he signed. The contractor picked up all the trash and the contract was fulfilled. His payment, the equivalent of $3,624 US. The boss was pissed, and my father just showed him the contract he signed, and he couldn't do anything about it. More context, the area which he cleaned was about 500 meters, almost 547 yards. I think really this is one of those situations where it was nice to have a contractor that could just come in and do all the work for you real easy. But like OP's father tried to point out, that was just impractical. Some things I think legitimately you just have to do yourself, because paying a professional or a company to come in and do it for you is just illogical with how expensive it's going to be, especially when you can just chip away at it slowly like the father suggested. Our next story is from Kea Robs' To It. Don't want to pay my asking price? Okay. Years ago, I sold my first motorcycle. It was a good bike, but as it was my first motorcycle, I had laid it down a couple of times doing stupid stuff, so it wasn't perfect. I took good care of it though, and always replaced damaged or scratched things because I didn't want it to look bad. Well, except for the left side of the engine, aka the stator cover. The sides of most motorcycle engines will often make contact with the ground and get scratched up if the bike slides on its side, which mine did on several occasions. I had replaced the stator cover before and didn't want to go through that again, even though it's only about a $120 part. Plus, the scrapes on the stator cover weren't that bad and I could live with them. So I list my bike for sale, show it to a few people, and along comes a dad with his young adult son. Now, the dad, being an older and wiser rider, riding for as many years as the moon had orbited planet Earth, knew he had the better end of the bargain. He was there looking at my first bike that had been gently crashed before, which I was fully upfront about. Easy bargain, right? I was pretty firm on my asking price, for one simple reason. I was going to throw in all the brand new parts, accessories, and maintenance items I'd accumulated for this bike. A couple of oil filters, case of oil, brake pads, a new stator cover, and even an inoperable engine, which still had many good parts on it, but if and only if they had paid my asking price. This was easily over $300 in parts excluding the engine. The dad of the buyer played the bad cop in the scenario, pointing out things that he thought could give him some bargaining power, and then of course made a lower offer. I entertained the offer, but at the same time informed them of my conditions for getting the spare parts. We don't need the spare parts. Okay, I counteroffered, explaining that my asking price was already very competitive given the condition of my bike. We settled on $100 less than my asking price, so they left with only the bike and none of the parts. A few days go by, and the buyer reaches back out to me to ask if they can come by to pick up the stator cover for free to replace the scratched one that was on the bike. I replied with, "Sorry, I'm going to sell it to make up for the discount I gave you on the motorcycle." A replacement stator cover costs more than the $100 they saved on the purchase. But if they paid me that $100, they would have gotten the cover along with supplies for their first oil change, around $80, brake pads, around $75, sprockets, around $90, plus a whole nother engine to tinker around with. The engine had catastrophically failed, so it wasn't worth much, but the parts on it are still expensive to buy new. There's definitely nothing wrong with the way this dad handled it, and they probably got a deal on it, but there's absolutely no room to have any kind of buyer's remorse after passing up on a deal that good. And our final story of the day is from House of Nim. Sorry, Miranda. I was just doing what you told me to do. I was just commenting in another post about homeowners associations and remembered this. Our last house was in a homeowners association. Our garage had our 2 pickups in it, but my husband's mechanic truck was too long to fit in the driveway without being over the sidewalk, which was against HOA rules, so he couldn't park it in the driveway. He parked it in front of the RV gate that had a gravel driveway. Well, one day we got a violation letter for parking on the landscaping in front of the RV gate. So I called and spoke to the homeowners association manager, Miranda. She said if we wanted to park there, we had to pave it. I asked her, "So you're telling me that we have to pave it?" She said yes. So we paved it. Then we get another violation letter a couple weeks later. This one accompanied by a fine saying we needed to get permission to pave the driveway. When I called up Miss Miranda again, I told her that we were not responsible for paying the fine, nor did we need to ask permission because her literally telling us to pave it was giving us permission. She tried to argue against it, that citing some HOA bylaws about applications and approvals and some such nonsense. I wasn't having it and told her that if she wanted people to follow the rules, then she shouldn't have told people to break them. She was pissed, but ultimately dropped the whole thing because she knew she had messed up. Honestly, I'm glad that Miranda dropped it in this situation because it sounds like this was even just like a phone conversation only and not really like something necessarily in an email that OP could refer to that had the exact words. So you're telling me that we have to pave it with a yes right after that. I'm also really glad OP got away with it because honestly, screw HOAs. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another malicious compliance story that was way crazier than any of the stories I've read in this video, click on that left video. Or, if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.